Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today we're looking at something pretty interesting involving Pavel Durov, the co-founder of Telegram.
Right.
Apparently he was blocked from actually going to the Oslo Freedom Forum in person.
Yeah, that definitely caught my eye. It raises some immediate questions, doesn't it? About digital platforms, government power, and, well, free speech itself.
Exactly. So first off, maybe give us a quick refresher on the Oslo Freedom Forum.
Sure. It's run by the Human Rights Foundation, HRF. Think of it as a major summit, really focused on universal human rights, individual liberty.
Okay.
It pulls together activists, thinkers, policymakers, people really deep in these issues globally.
And Durov was meant to be a keynote speaker there.
That's right, which, really says something about how his perspective is viewed in that human rights context. He's a big tech figure, obviously.
Absolutely. I mean, the guy runs a platform with, hundreds of millions of users, and he's known for having a very specific take on content, moderation.
A very particular stance, yes.
But yeah, he couldn't make it to Oslo in person. Reports say French courts denied his request to travel to Norway.
Correct. Now, it is worth pointing out, while him not being there physically is significant, especially for a freedom forum,
right,
he did still give his address remotely, live streamed it.
No.
So his message got out, just the circumstances were, let's say, altered.
Okay, so let's get into that. The Human Rights Foundation, the organizers, they can't have been happy.
No, definitely not. For Halvorsen, he's the founder and CEO of HRF, was quoted, expressed disappointment, said it was unfortunate, and specifically that Durov's voice is needed there.
Interesting phrasing, needed. Why do you think an organization like HRF, focused squarely on human rights, feels so strongly about having a tech CEO there? What's that link?
Well, I think they see Durov as more than just a tech guy. His platform, Telegram, has become this really significant space for free expression.
Particularly in certain parts of the world.
Exactly. Places where information flow is heavily controlled or, censored. So his public stance, his resistance to political censorship, that probably resonates very deeply with HRF's core mission, promoting liberty, open discussion.
Yeah, that fits with his image. He's built this reputation, hasn't he, as a real advocate for free speech, for individual liberty. It's sort of baked into Telegram's philosophy, or at least the public perception of it.
Definitely. And that's why the tech world and the crypto space, too, are watching this French legal situation so closely.
Because of the potential knock-on effects.
Right. What happens with Durov could signal how individual freedoms might be treated or challenged in the digital sphere moving forward.
It's not like this is the first time we've seen these kinds of clashes, right?
Yeah.
Platforms versus governments.
Oh, absolutely not. It's an ongoing tension. But what makes this one stand out, maybe, is how public Durov is being about it. Yeah. His very principled refusal.
It could set a kind of precedent.
Potentially, yeah. For how other tech leaders might respond if they face similar demands. It really forces that question. What is the responsibility of a global platform when a single country makes specific demands?
Okay, and here's where the story gets, really specific according to the article we looked at. The core allegation from Durov. He claims French intelligence services asked him to censor content on Telegram.
Right.
Specifically, what he called conservative-leaning political content linked to the Romanian presidential elections.
Okay, conservative-leaning, that's broad.
The
article didn't specify exactly what that meant.
No, it didn't. So, what could that cover in a Romanian election context? And why would French intelligence, foreign agency, be interested?
Well, without specifics, it's hard to be certain. But conservative leaning could be anything from supporting certain candidates or parties to specific policy stances or even just broader ideological viewpoints. As for why France might care, a government might argue they're trying to prevent foreign interference in another country's democratic process. Maybe they saw this content as potentially destabilizing or spreading misinformation or, narratives they deemed harmful coming from outside Romania.
Trying to protect the election's integrity from their point of view.
Potentially.
Yeah.
That could be the justification. Though, obviously, defining interference or misinformation is where things get very tricky.
And Durov's response to this alleged request, pretty blunt.
Very. He apparently refused outright. The quote attributed to him is powerful. You can't defend democracy by destroying democracy. You can't fight election interference by interfering with elections.
Strong words, very much about the principle of the thing for him.
It really seems to be. And it lines up with his track record, doesn't it? He said multiple times Telegram won't do political censorship.
He's even said they'd pull out of a country rather than compromise on that.
Exactly. He sees it as fundamental free speech. Complying with that kind of request, in his view, isn't just bad policy, it's a human rights violation.
And he didn't just vaguely mention this either. He named names.
Right. First, he apparently brought it up on his own Telegram channel, but then he went public on X, formerly Twitter, and pointed fingers.
Specifying the location and person involved.
Yeah, he mentioned the meeting happened this spring at the Hôtel de Crillon in Paris, Salon de Bataille, I think. And he named Nicholas Lerner, the head of French intelligence, as the one making the request.
Wow. Adding that level of detail, definitely. Well, it adds weight to his claims, doesn't it?
It certainly makes it harder to dismiss lightly. It shows he's not just making abstract points. He's alleging a specific interaction and framing it as a human rights issue, not just a business disagreement.
So pulling back to the bigger picture again, this whole episode just perfectly illustrates that tension, right? Between a government's national interests, maybe protecting an election, as they see it, and this principle of unrestricted free speech on a global platform like Telegram.
Exactly. And from the government side, like we discussed, the rationale might be about preventing foreign manipulation or disinformation campaigns that could use these platforms.
Even if it's happening in another country's election.
Potentially, yes. They might argue there's a shared interest in upholding democratic norms, or perhaps specific geopolitical interests are at play. But again, who gets to define manipulation or disinformation is the massive question.
Definitely. And just so we're perfectly clear for everyone listening, we're reporting on what's in the Cointelegraph article here. Durov's allegations, the HRF stance. We're not taking a position on the Romanian political content itself or whether the French intelligence did or didn't do this.
Exactly. Our goal isn't to judge the politics, but to understand this clash, this intersection of technology, state power, and fundamental rights principles.
We're looking at the dynamics.
Precisely. Examining how these forces play out in the real world for these global digital platforms.
Okay, so let's just quickly recap the key points. Pavel Durov, Telegram co-founder, known free speech advocate, was set to be a keynote at the Oslo Freedom Forum, but got blocked by French courts from attending physically.
And this happened after he publicly accused French intelligence of asking Telegram to censor conservative political content related to Romania's elections.
A request he says he flatly refused, citing his commitment to free expression.
Yes. And the whole situation really spotlights that core conflict. Global platforms championing free speech versus national governments trying to exert control over online content for various reasons, national security, election integrity, you name it.
It really tees up a big question for you, the listener, to think about. When you see someone like Durov taking this stand, and an organization like the Human Rights Foundation backing him, what does this mean long-term?
For global communication online, how does this shift or maybe reinforce the balance of power between these huge platforms, individual governments, and ultimately us, the users, and our right to speak freely online?
And maybe more fundamentally, what does this incident tell us about just how hard it is to keep communication channels truly open, truly uncensored, in a world where different countries have such different, sometimes clashing political goals and interests?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Something to definitely keep pondering.